The Leo King will be live shortly. Please hold on while the collective consciousness loads, and thank you for being a part of the Leo Kingdom. The Leo King will be live shortly. Please hold on while the collective consciousness loads, and thank you for being a part of the Leo Kingdom. The Leo King will be live shortly. Please hold on while the collective consciousness loads, and thank you for being a part of the Leo Kingdom. The Leo King will be live shortly. Please hold on while the collective consciousness loads, and thank you for being a part of the Leo Kingdom. The Leo King will be live shortly. Please hold on while the collective consciousness loads, and thank you for being a part of the Leo Kingdom.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, Leo King, and we are here at highvibe.tv for After Dark, the spiritual talk show. Make sure that you join highvibe.tv today. This is the awesome spiritual network where we are bringing everything spiritual to you on our awesome exclusive network with all of our apps from all your iPhone, your Android, Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, and our awesome website, highvibe.tv. Make sure that you subscribe to get all the exclusive content daily, weekly, monthly. We have so many awesome things. Plus, we have awesome events that we are throwing as well. But tonight, as we are entering into this week's big solstice energy, which of course, as Craig has just thrown up on the screen, we are going to be doing a New Year's Eve event. And I'm proud to say that some of the guests here tonight are all going to be part of this event. Tonight, we have got Abby Moneyhunt, co-founder and owner of highvibe.tv. We've got Dylan, the Spirit Advisor.
Hey, guys.
Who he is, the Spirit Advisor. And we've got Jax Atlantis, Master Tarot, and Master many other things in High Vibes world. What's going on, everyone?
Big time energies.
I know.
We've been having fun in the studio.
I kind of want to talk about the portal, your galactic portal that ended on the 15th.
On the 15th.
Because it really felt that, what was it, a 10-day portal?
Yeah. And how did it feel for you?
I mean, it felt like an actual, if I were to describe a portal, it felt like a portal. Like it felt kind of, these things are happening and I'm here to witness them.
Yeah.
And take the witnessing and now do something about it.
It was strange for me because I did feel very special and encased in that portal. I got a lot of really positive visions, but I also had a couple meltdowns while I was in there. Not real meltdown, meltdowns like I do them now. But
I think we all melt down in our own unique ways, but I think we all as humans go through a meltdown in a similar kind of way.
I think that the reason I think they're different now is because they last for a really short period of time, whereas before I used to get stuck in them for, hours or days, or now
Years.
It's just a few minutes usually, and I can find myself again fairly quickly. But it was very bizarre for me coming out of it. I mean, I was just tired and I felt down, and that is not a normal feeling for me. And so it really made me curious how everybody else was dealing with it too, because for me, it just felt like now it's time to really go to work.
How did you feel, Dylan?
Oh, yeah. I felt it. I felt like I was picked up by a very, very high velocity energy, almost without warning. And I mean, I knew it because Abby had spoken about it, but still, it's like when something that energy, when the amplitude is that high, even if you know what's happening to you, there's still so much that you aren't conscious of. And I feel like I was blipping in and out of existence. And when I would blip out, I wasn't conscious of what was going on in that time. And it was really interesting. I got a lot of opportunities to be in places I usually am not. like up around LA and stuff like that, which is usually a place that I don't go to. And yeah, I feel like I've just skidded out the other side with this renewed sense of like, okay, got my hat on straight. let's get to work now. So yeah, not playing around.
What about you, Jax?
Yes, definitely really similar. For me, it was like torrents of external energies coming in. So there would be like this challenge of like, okay, so recently you've been in alignment, but what about if we take this away? You know, what if this energy is taken away? Or what if you sort of have to face this energy? And it was like, okay, but what about people's opinions? And it's like, okay, but what about money? Like, is anything going to, you know, start to take that? And it's like being able to keep a smile on through that, to me, was like what winning was. Like, you know, just being able to stay okay no matter what energies were coming in. So even when the panic took hold, because it did, you know, it was like, it was something just like Abby was saying, like very brief. Like it was like a moment instead of a phase, you know?
That's the beautiful thing about a portal, is it's a glimpse.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be something that you're stuck in for a really long time. I think the like health things that happen in portals can stick around for a minute. But
my sleep was off.
yeah.
Like there was moments of really high energy and then like blum in my bed for the weekend.
I've noticed an extraordinary tiredness. And I'm interested to see what people say in the chat about that too.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. I love what Jack said about felt like something was being taken away and how you handled it, because I felt that a lot. And then it was almost like, okay, I went through a couple of meltdowns of what I thought was going to be taken away. And it's like, if it's going to be, I'm not going to burn a bridge of something that could be taken away. I'm going to just accept this as now. I think it really was a lot of tests of how you're just like, okay, that's just how I'm going to handle this now is going to be how this situation will go in the future. And so it was those moments and now that I would shift and then go, I'm going to do something different now. It's making me want to put my energy somewhere different at the moment instead of just lock and loaded on this and trying to kind of have a grip on it.
I'm getting a visual of in Men in Black where he's going through the simulation with the pop-up aliens and not really knowing which one to blast at first because he was a rookie. I feel like there are a lot of like pop-up aliens and you thought, oh my God, that's the villain. And you're like, and it's like, oh wait, no, that wasn't it. Like it was actually the little girl that's not actually a little girl. It's like disguised as, it's an alien in disguise. So alien babies are out in force, except they're toddlers now. And that can be scary.
Yeah, but I think that portal came, since we now look at this week, and to look kind of just, we don't even have to look astrology or anything. I mean, we are coming to, a solstice, right? And then we are coming to the galactic center with the sun, which really it's the sun at the galactic center more than Jupiter, more than any other kind of any energy that defines why we have a galactic center. Is the sun is what's keeping the solar system and kind of the identity of what we are as a, what would you call it? I mean, I like it's solar system, but if I were to use a spiritual term, it's like it is the God center of our domain, of our existence, of our life. So this is the entrance into, I'm calling it Providence. I've been hearing destiny and fate a lot, and then I don't know, Spirit brought Providence to my energy, and I was like,
What's the definition of that?
We were actually having a lot of fun with that one today. I'll name you a couple that I actually thought were really interesting as far as what Providence means. The main one is the protective care of God or of nature as a spiritual power. God or nature as providing protective or spiritual care. Timely preparation for future eventualities.
Ooh,
That was my
that's so
favorite
spot
one.
on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So. Yeah, I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that preparation energy now, because it feels like, we got thrown for some loops, but we've got to maintain our focus. And I feel like, as you've been saying too, the next 2 weeks it's really like show up time. and it's really like putting ego aside, putting your fears and doubts aside, even putting that momentary sense of feeling ungrounded or outside of your body or outside of your life, or there's nothing that you can really lean on. It's like we've got to just set our hearts to a certain frequency and like trust that over any kind of comeuppance or upheaval that might come in the next 2 weeks. Because I feel like, yeah, as in our discussions when we talk about like dark forces, and obviously all things in existence are just another aspect of our own consciousness, but those still need to be treated as things that are, you got to treat the threat as real if you're going to address it and maintain your, what is it? Solidity, like your composure, your focus. And I think
solidarity,
self-containment, that's what I was trying to get to. And I feel like the Sag energy is dwindling away a little bit. We're starting to really feel the rigorous energy of Capricorn descend, and it's asking different things of us. It's asking a different approach.
If you think about it this way too, it's like our cellular structure is made up of, 40 trillion cells. So it's like the entire
0.1726 or something.
Yeah, it's the symbolism of it is that the entire universe resides inside of our own bodies, and every single thing that we see, everything that we see with these eyes resides right here between our ears. And I think that's why we pay such close attention to words like solidarity, or the things that are going on around us right now really do impact our physical body at a tremendous level, because we're beholding these things inside of our own physicality. And that's why it's so important to be aware of that, because at any point in time, even though these things are going on out here, we can help our own physicality feel better by realizing that there is more control over that than we realize.
Yeah.
By what we're partaking with our eyes, or our ears, or our surroundings. And that's why when we're really aware that we are coming out of a portal, or this is how we have self-growth, that this is evolution of ourself, like the real intent. And that takes away some of the scariness of it, even though these things are happening around us.
Well, Dylan's brought a lot up of great things this year about getting out of the mind. And I feel that to get through this one, it is a deep, deep, deep intuitive knowing, like at the deepest level that we've ever experienced. And really, I don't like the term shooting from the hip, because it's always associated as like, okay, right? But there's got to be some new sort of term. It's like really about a soul self-worth, not in the self-worth sense of like, I know how to manifest, or I know, right? Like this new renown, trust in spirit and the connection of your own spirit connecting to spirit itself. Like it's like, and just trusting what spirit is fully saying, and learning how to navigate with a new way of the eyes, right? Like a new way of our third eye, our crown, like everything is like, it's like we are totally connecting and just trusting and taking that. I don't even like the term leap of faith either, because then there's that whole kind of that it's a struggle. I really feel like this doesn't have to be, it's like you just know, and you just take it.
Yeah, and it's like full acceptance of spirit. It's like it's a full like going back to Providence as a force of nature. It's like fully accepting all of it, like being able to understand all the members of the team. Because like right now it feels like, if we have like a grudge against Cancers, or we had a few bad relationships with Sagittarius, like even beyond the zodiac signs, like if we have pieces and elements of the world that we're just like pushing away right now, like we need to understand we're going to have to work through all of those capacities. We have to be able to work through the 4 elements. We have to be able to work through the 12 signs. And it's so important to not like block anything out or think that we have to be some sort of savant in like a particular area and that that's all we are. Like it's, you know, we were just talking about this earlier. We were just talking about how mastery of the mind, body, and spirit, like all together. But if body's being thrown to the wayside or if spirit's being thrown to the wayside, then, you know, it's just like, it's an incomplete puzzle. And it's really important that we're going in and trying to actually complete this for ourselves to a reasonable degree.
And I think also we've been receiving so much input on levels that maybe even our brains are not fully dialed in to like translate in a way that makes sense to us, and that can be overwhelming. But I think it's really important to realize that your output, just as you are the universe in a human form, your output matters a lot too. So how are you consciously steering the energy? How are you using your intention, your thoughts, and you know, even if you have things in your spiritual toolkit, you know, like if you use spells, if you use meditations, you know, whatever the case may be, something to reinforce that you have as much agency in this equation as the universe itself, even if it's in a more micro way. Because I know that the moments that I was able to really get back to myself and ground through this last portal was I really had to just sit with a lot of intense feeling and just kind of like remember and focus and dial in and tune out certain things too. So I think it's really important to just don't forget your power and your agency in moments like these.
Yeah, and it wasn't about like throwing it away either, I felt, because I felt that too. It was like I'm harnessing this and transforming it into something good. Like I'm taking this and going, oh, it's not looking how I want, but it can in a different way than I'm expecting it to look. And then it's like, okay. And making that turn was a lot easier than it ever has been before. It was weird.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Does that make sense? Like,
exactly.
It was like, whoa.
Because I really saw the effect of just getting onto that intention.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like, oh, I set an intention, I hope I feel better today. It was like, no, whoa, and it really brought it in. And so earlier I was just getting the download to remind everyone to use your spiritual support system. You know, not just the people in your community, but those beings that are truly alive on other levels of dimensional frequency. You know, there's so many beings on the other side of the veil that are here to help us, that are here to guide us, and especially to protect us. You know, especially to keep the field clear in these, you know, turbulent times. You know, archangel energy is really accessible. You know, if you don't have any particular guides that you know, Archangel Michael, you know, that's somebody that, or that's a being that can really wipe out negativity in your frequency or weird stuff that's coming your way. When people get mixed up, they get scared, they get even violent out of that fear.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to, just like you brush your teeth and put on your jacket if it's cold, we need to be having that mindset of protection, I feel, going forward.
Well, imagine if you'd never heard of any of this.
Right.
And you're feeling that energy.
Yeah.
Like, it would be very discombobulating. I think that's why it's going to be important to be very compassionate with people too, because I don't think people understand some of the actions that they are taking. Yeah. You know, they can be just reacting. But it is amazing to watch our inner guidance system wake up. And that's the big thing that's happening right now, is realizing that, like, we actually get to choose the portals that we're going into when things go into chaos around us, or when bad things do happen. It's like we've got the opportunity to switch the channel, you know, that we are watching. And I've often thought about, you know, one time my mom and I got in a really bad car accident. We rolled down a cliff and it was horrifying. But it's like me and my mom didn't, I mean, I was hurt, but I didn't feel any of the hurt when I was going through it, because your body kicks in adrenaline to handle things. And I think that adrenaline that comes up is probably a lot of the adrenaline that happens in people now that are facing anxiety.
Yeah.
You know, they're actually prepared and encoded and ready to handle whatever's coming, and it's just never been anything that they had to use all their energy for yet.
Right.
So it's like it seems like things are ramping up so people can make decisions and walk through it with more ease and grace.
Yeah, I like how you brought up somebody who might just be seeing this and just feeling energy like this and just kind of new to it would be like, what in the heck is going on? And I feel that we might be feeling that energy a lot more in this decade, but I feel like it was actually an extremely empowering energy. Like at first it looked not at all like I want, but the turn was easy, and then the turn actually brings you to a place where you're like, wow, I did turn that around. And it's like the first time I think in the just like maybe it's a collective conscious thing, or maybe it's just that it's like things can be turned around a lot easier than we ever thought before. And they were actually, which sounds so stupid, but they were so minute this whole time that we were having trouble turning around the most simplest things for eons.
And it becomes so apparent in hindsight. Like so quickly after stepping into alignment, even if you're at rock bottom, like in alignment, you accelerate really fast. And it's like when things are slightly off, it's like the simplest things can like hold you back, and it can take so much longer to even get through the journey. It feels I think that's the whole illusion of being out of alignment, is everything feels like it's an endless, arduous journey. You don't really see the light at the end of the tunnel, and then so you question if there even is one, and then that empowers your negative emotions because there might be no point to any of this. And then it's like, and it's just this endless cycle over and over until you suddenly step into that light.
Yeah, it reminds me of like kind of sitting at a door that's locked, and you're like, okay, like I've looked around if there's a spare key. The person's telling me they're coming, but they're not here. It's like, are you gonna just sit there and like, it's like stupid, like little minute things like that, and where our energies start to get weird or get, and then can thwart us for a long time, where it's like, well, they're not here. I'm gonna do this and turn the energy around. It's like these little moments are just so powerful right now in how everything's going. But there is this other energy, since we do come into Capricorn. We do have so many. This week was crazy, the astrology. I'm like, this is going to be a dramatic time.
Yeah.
I mean, even during this portal, it was like a reality show, watching just right? And I'm like, oh, wow, this is going to be times 10? Okay, like, let's see what this will be like. So, I mean, I was talking to Anne before she left, it's like, I know it's the holidays, but I don't. Like it's like the last thing on my mind, period, or my soul. And then it's interesting to see how, whether it was in England with the election or even in America with the impeachment, like we're not used to just like right now at this moment. Like I was like, Christmas is next week. For real, I was like, I am not on that thought brainwave of calendar or time right now at all. I'm like, and the way that everything's out in the world with the politics and everything, and everything else in our own individual lives, it's just like the last thing in the world is the old world's understanding anymore. Like that world's understanding, you can feel it being like, wow, those are some old baseboards that are broken and nobody is stepping on those, and if they are, good luck. It kind of feels like that, like these really old baseboards that are.
Yeah, the bounce house is deflating.
But
people are still trying to crawl in there, and they'll see soon enough.
Real soon, when it just goes on there. Get me out of here.
It is weird. On the Galactic Code, it's that year of timelessness, and I know for myself, it seems like I could look at my clock and it's 1 o'clock, and it seems like 10 minutes and it's already 3 o'clock. There is no rhyme or reason to how it is passing. I think a lot of people are experiencing that.
I feel like when I've needed time has slowed down.
Yeah.
And when I needed momentum, that's been happening too.
I think
crazy.
people should play with it.
I do too.
Like if maybe you're in traffic and you think you're running late. It's like, realize there is this ability to warp it a little bit, like play with it.
Yeah,
and
go on.
well, you have to get really calm first before you do that. And you have to forget that you're late.
Right.
And really breathe and center into the moment and visualize yourself walking in perfectly on time and see if that doesn't just happen.
Yeah.
Right, because time is so fluid, reacting based on our belief in it, our emphasis on it. So if we can get to a space of timelessness, even if it's just for a window of time, it's like that's when time will come to you and be like, okay, what do you want me to do?
And we do have the ability to warp our perception of time, because there was an experiment done where these college kids were basically told that they were agreeing to something that was dangerous. They weren't going to tell them what it was, and they essentially put blindfolds on them. They hooked them up to bungee cords, and they pushed them off a cliff. And they all described the experience as being multiple hours because they didn't know. Like the brain literally, from their point of view, they were in the air for hours, even though it was just a matter of like 30 seconds.
Wow.
And so our ability to manipulate our perception of time, and arguably time itself, is like a very possible thing.
Well, and I think it goes for on a human element, from human to human right now, of compassion, is time creates expectation out of people. Like, when are you showing up for me at this time? Or, you know, and I think that this energy has been a little bit like, not only about patience, but it's also been about the expectation about other people and what they're doing with their time and their energy, which of course there's that balance beam of where we do kind of, it's like, you know, but it's kind of, I think, just having like conversations of like, where are you at? Let me just understand where you're at. So I at least don't have to put an expectation so much, because I think that if you can have really solid communication right now and you're able to just like go, okay, then you don't have an expectation of like, it needs to be tomorrow because I want the feeling now of you to do this or to have this relationship or to have right? It's like that causes, I think, a lot of disharmony on the planet right now with people, is
Absolutely.
just expectation.
Absolutely. We need to be excellent communicators right now.
Yeah.
Even if you don't feel that you have the energy to communicate to somebody, or, you know, it's just like not your first priority because your emphasis is other places, I think that is part of the compassionate attitude that we have to holistically embrace as we move forward, and just being able to let people know where you're at, like you said, what you're doing, why you're not responding, you know, just being like, hey, I'm emotionally drained. I can't take in your emotion right now.
And you can do that on any phone now. You can have preset text to send people. Like, I'm going to put like, I am spiritually wiped.
Yeah.
And refilling.
Thank you
the
for
gas
understanding.
tank. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. And that feels
Love
good
you.
to us
Yeah.
too, because then we're not like having that weight on our shoulders of what they might be projecting on what our lack of response or lack of attendance or whatever.
And then
could
everybody has their own way of communicating. Some people like phone calls, some people like text, some people like Instagram messaging, some people, right? So then there's that whole element too. But I think that it's like you can find a way to get to the center of whatever that is by trying the multiple routes. And I think it's about the less you put expectation on somebody else, the more it's going to also create the experience to go better. You know what I mean? Because I feel like
more possibilities.
Yeah. But there is something to say about the time is pretty narrow right now.
It
so
is.
it is kind of of course there's going to be that other paradox, right? Like that's the paradox where it's like, but at the same time, like, I don't want to wait here forever. So
it's like thinning. It's like
Yeah.
before we were navigating through like gel or pudding, and now it's just like mist or just like a gas, like helium.
That's a good explanation.
yeah. And tarot, what do you think that would like? What? Well, maybe it's temperance card, Jax. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, as far as everything narrowing, I mean, you talked earlier on deep astrology about the funneling of our opportunities, and essentially that things are suddenly becoming pretty clear. Like we kind of got to choose this path or this one, and there's not just this random spider web anymore. To me, it's like as far as things narrow, I would say the Chariot. Honestly, Chariot's perfect. Yeah,
I love that card.
Chariot's perfect. Essentially, we know what it looks like when one of those horses goes way in front of the other one. We know like what it looks like if we're trying to get the horses to stop completely. We just can't, like we have to keep moving right now. And at the same time, there's like a form of compassion with just admitting to yourself what it is you desire. Like admitting which path you really desire, because refusal to admit that you desire one is a way that you keep yourself from ever really choosing one. And of course, that will always lead to the bad one. And so, yeah, it's like, I would say Chariot.
Yeah, and I had a lot of readings when I was asking myself about situations that the 7 of Wands would pop up about things that I want, but it would that's kind of like you have to take your stance and other people might not like it.
Yeah.
Right? And you have to still hold your position because maybe they don't understand or maybe they have expectations other than what they want to see. And I think that this is a time where not only is it the expectations of what somebody wants out of you, maybe in for themselves for time, but then you have to deal with what other people are deciding and what they're choosing in their past right now and what you're going to have to deal with.
Yeah.
And the choices that they're making that involve you somehow, depends on how much you attach to it.
And to be comfortable with not having an answer yet.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, with 7 of Wands, there's a lot of times where it's like, I mean, just after the 6 of Wands, you have this parade thrown for you and like all this different stuff. And 7 of Wands, you have to get comfy with the concept of not knowing exactly what to do next, but believing in yourself to the degree that you know that you will come up with something and that the time will come. And a lot of people, when they're job hunting, get a lot of 7 of Wands energy because essentially they're so impatient and they're trying to like hurry up and get it now, of course, because they need the next paycheck. And so by trying to rush it, they end up like staying in this weird purgatory energy, and it doesn't feel like they're able to grab onto it. But the thing is, if you can get comfortable that you have what it takes to get whatever that next job is or that next career, then you know you'll be able to step right into the 8 of Wands and start setting some new goals.
Yeah, and okay, so kind of switching gears here. This is a week that, well, I mean, I wasn't going to the astrology, but my guides are just really telling me to kind of go, what an auspicious time, the holidays, the end of a year, where the universe is asking for us to go completely opposite of that kind of direction of like, this is where I bug out, right? It's asking us to do the opposite, which is very weird in the world, which I think is part of the anxiety that goes around, right? Because it's like, but this is stopping and do I have to? Or... I mean, that's why I use the government as an example. I don't see one of them thinking about the holidays. They are like determined about, you know, whether it's the impeachment or whether you went to the England, you know, things going on in the UK. Like they're sitting down and everybody's at the table and everybody's making decisions and everybody's doing it and everybody's getting the papers out and everybody's got it. And it's like, this is where everybody's usually like bugged out early, like, hey, okay, so Congress is closed. All right, I'm going home with the fam. And then there's like this energy of us in the middle of all this where it's going to be so heightened that it's like, I'm not saying to not do holiday, but it's like there is something to say about like, I think you're like, because I don't know, maybe I just want to hear from all you all. Like for me, I like really, I mean, I see it, I'm around it, so it's not like I'm not around it. Like all over where I live is Christmas lights, and I have the boat parades that are in front of my house with fireworks, and literally on my balcony, I live on the marina. Like it's just a boat. People are bumping Christmas music on their boats, and it's just like everywhere. But I feel extremely removed from like that kind of world. I also feel extremely removed from, like I'm having fun, like I'm doing fun things, but I'm also like, I don't feel like I'm expected to do something that's just not in alignment right now. I don't know.
I think it's interesting how holidays have been used pretty much for commercial bases.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why we don't feel it so strong right now, because we're starting to see beyond all the things like that.
Yeah.
I know for me, I can't even believe that Halloween's over. I mean, let alone Thanksgiving, and thinking that Christmas is here. And what
were you for Halloween? You weren't here.
I didn't dress up.
Oh, well,
yeah.
Next year
I know we should have like a little. I never got into holidays that much anyway, you know, because of the way I was raised. Right. But it's like I still have always been aware of the year, you know, like the timing of the year based on holidays.
Yeah.
But this year has been weird.
I just want to say this real quick because I know Dylan wants to say something. it's so funny that I avoided every holiday this year, but when it came up at the last minute, I actually went through and
You
did
did it.
And
Yeah,
there's
you
something
did
to
do
say
it.
about, you know, like I remember growing up watching Christmas Story and how it's like the big build up to get to
Yeah.
Christmas and da-da. And now I'm not doing that, but then it's like the last minute, oh, the family's calling. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going. Or it's Halloween, I'm getting Indiana Jones together right now. You know what I mean? Like freaking, and then
But
I'm
it
like,
was the family. It was more the family that you wanted to
and
see,
it
right?
was, and it was just more. But there's something to say about like in the moment now, opposed to this like this date, and I must do this, or I must carry this energy all through, because I feel like this is a time of deep distractions too, because that energy that we were all talking about, that was. Gosh, I think you all feel it. It was extreme in the G spot to the like sacral, like just right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that where it was for you all?
Yeah, I can relate with that. I feel like there was just like a velocity to it.
Yeah,
that was just
volcano
huge.
energy.
And you know, the G center really is kind of the focal point for how the transdimensional light enters our DNA, because you know our DNA is a wormhole that just sucks in different frequencies of light and produces our illusion of being. And it feels like that was just getting opened up, and as much as it was maybe jarring and a little disorienting, I was talking about this with Sarah earlier, it feels like there was a huge purge too. It's like almost like the atoms themselves got more space in between them, and whatever gunk was in there was just getting like flooded out, almost to the extent where we could be feeling something like, oh shit, am I like not okay? But actually it was like old stuff coming through, and that's a big phenomenon that people I think need to get used to, is like when you're purging, that stuff is going to come up and out. And as it's passing out of you, your mind is going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm experiencing this right now. And it's going to feel like it's happening again. And we have to have that restraint to not give in to that panic and just let it pass. You talk about this a lot, Abby. And it's just important to note that. Like, I feel like I saw almost whole vignettes and timelines of my life come back from like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, where am I? And then just bloop, and then it was gone again.
Yeah, it was like pain points.
Right. And if I had identified with that pain point, I might have stuck a pin in that timeline and relived it.
And it
Yeah.
feels like they were pain points that you thought in your ego you had already dealt with, and they
Done
were
all the work,
I
yep.
had done all the work on that, and it was like, wait, no.
What? Yeah, absolutely.
Like I was like, yeah. I love how you brought up the timeline thing. For me, it was stuff I hadn't experienced since I was 20 years old. So I was like, 15 years ago, like, man, this was the feeling, and I carried this feeling for 2 years.
It's amazing that it gives us all the reminders.
Yeah.
So we can take that accumulated knowledge for what's coming now. Because like as you've spoken about, there is a lot of astrologers start to talk about it and then they stop. You know, I know that you've talked about it quite a bit, and
I'm being told to stop.
I know people say stop because they say you're scaring me, or the astrologer may say maybe I'm not supposed to be talking about this right now because maybe I don't want to create panic or whatever. I think another reason that it's not being talked about a lot is because there's choice points that every single human has the capability of making. If we're really wise about what we've gone through, if we're really aware of our inner guidance system, it will help guide us in these moments that come. And that's why as a collective, we're creating what's happening. And that's why an astrologer can't say this is going to happen exactly, because we don't know for sure. We don't know if all the work that we've been doing, you know, to raise our frequency and to be these light beings and to connect this giant grid, if that's done the work, that would stop all these other things from taking place.
Yeah.
You know, so it is unfolding. But that doesn't mean that the message doesn't stop of this could happen if we're not aware. You know, and this will happen if we choose to go into panic instead. This will happen if we can't be true to what we know inside ourselves. You know, it's not about being narcissistic, but it's not about making everybody else happy around us anymore either with our decisions that we're making.
Right. And I feel like that's coming up a lot too in readings. I just hear myself saying it a lot more than usual, is reminding people how to hold their value.
Yeah.
And really be willing to do nothing in order to stick to their value. Like when everyone is like, not even everyone, but when your conditioning is coming up loud and the scarcity consciousness is coming up loud and you feel like, oh, well, I just got to do it. It's like, no, that's when you really take that idea of sovereignty to the highest level possible, in the sense that my freedom, my choices, my consciousness is not subject to any external authority other than my own internal authority.
Right.
And it matters in the moment, you know, that's where you're making your decision out of. Like, is my belief that if I give in to this thing that I don't really want to do because it's going to help me survive or help me feel supported or support my ego? Or am I going to take a beat, see what happens, and trust that there's something better?
Yeah, it's an
just
illusion.
around the corner.
Yeah, it's an illusion that people try and program us in every single different forum, you know, like in school, in politics, and even in the family unit. Like, we all have this illusion that what we're supposed to do is to do things that everyone else approves of, you know, because like they've set a legacy or they've set a path or they've set some precedents. And the reality is, it's like, I couldn't imagine ever sentencing someone that I love to a life like that. I could never imagine like superimposing that on someone and saying, what you have to do is you just have to do something that makes everyone else happy, and then you prioritize your happiness second. It's just, it's not something that ever ends well. Like, historically, it's never worked. And so I think it's time to let go of that paradigm. I think also when we make ourselves happy, you just have so much extra energy. You're just fueled by so much more joy. And so with that extra energy, with that extra joy, you actually embody like the spirit of Christmas, like the genuine spirit that supposedly runs Christmas. So, you know, as far as your question earlier about Christmas and like, what do we think about that? It's like, I think there's very little reason to prioritize the appearance or mechanics of Christmas right now. I think that there's definitely tons of reason to give yourself what it is you actually need so you can give it to other people. And, you know, for me, like, I was raised like Abby as a Jehovah's Witness, you know, so like I had no emotional connection to holidays at all. So for me, it was when I was 16 that I like opted in and chose to start doing it when I moved up to Oregon. And, you know, for me, I like holidays. I kind of enjoy them, but what I notice is I'm almost trying to like take it to the next level, because people will all meet up, they'll talk about hanging out more, and then they don't necessarily always go through with it. And I try and, you know, like capitalize on those opportunities to start bringing people together more, or like have like things that happen after Christmas. I definitely have it in the last few years, but yeah, I think it's like, I think we all kind of feel collectively like this is sort of the least important thing on the to-do list. And it always seems like it's so important because of the appearances, like that your neighbors will see whether or not you're putting up the Christmas lights, or, you know, that your friends and family will, you know, have been invited where they're used to being invited. But I think our freedom is just the number one thing right now. It's the most important spirit.
Yeah, so Craig and I, since we had Craig had a date bail on him Saturday night, and I was by myself, so I called him up and I went and hung out, and it was a brand new South Park episode about Christmas. So Santa was pissed that everybody got drunk on Christmas, so he was able to pass in the city council that no alcohol sales from December 24th to January 2nd. So in the town, everybody's freaking out, and they have those, you know, ropes that they have, like the chain when you're at Ralph's or grocery store, like everywhere, right? And the bars are like, we can only sell soda pop and water. And so then they go, well, marijuana's legal, so we're gonna all smoke weed. So then they have this guy who's making all the great weed, and then they ban weed, right? And he's like, oh, I've got an idea. And he had put some cocaine, and then the mayor comes and goes, you've been putting cocaine on the marijuana? And he goes, yeah, but hold on, I can fix this. And he runs and he goes to Coachella on stage, like medical cocaine. And it's so funny. He gets everybody in America, and like, you know how they do it in South Park, like in 20 seconds, he's convinced all of America, got the legislation for cocaine to be legal, right? So then now cocaine's legal and everybody's hyped up on cocaine. to have Christmas. Like, oh yeah, Christmas is great. It's going on again. But then they get rid of the coke. Santa now is pissed. So Santa comes, and instead of dropping the gifts off, he goes into everybody's house and picks up every cocaine baggie, every big thing of cocaine, and takes all of it. And now it's like the sleigh can barely get up the mountain because he's got so much of the cocaine Christmas snow, what it's called. And then the cocaine guy is like getting on him on a snowmobile, and they launch off, and then they get down there, and then he's like, "You're ruining Christmas, Santa. Like, people just want to do whatever they want to do." And he's like, they need to learn to enjoy Christmas on purity. You know what I mean? He's like, "Yeah, but this is, what is it, Craig? Like tenor? It's a millennial thing. It's called surf. Like something is organic. It's like a word now. Anyway."
Let me go get my millennial dictionary.
Tenor or tensor. Anyway, long story short, he convinces Santa to do the coke. Santa loves the coke. Jesus shows up and go, "What are you guys doing?" And then Santa convinces Jesus to do the coke. And then Jesus is like, "Well, I guess I'm going to do my miracle." And he sprays all the cocaine around the whole city, and everybody starts sniffing it and putting their mouths out like it's snow. But the whole point of that show was that everybody was escaping, using Christmas as an escape.
Right.
That nobody actually wanted to, because they show them without the drugs and without the alcohol, and they're like, "All right, Jimmy, this whole ice skating thing, just like get off there. We need to just go home." You know what I mean? Like, nobody wants that. You know, like, get off that Christmas tree. But then when they have the coke, he's like, "Oh yeah, stay on the Christmas tree, Jimmy." You know, they're all just like all hyped up. It was hilarious, but it was very deep.
Yes, I can tell. I think it's a great just illustration of, well, it asks the question, why do we even do these things? Like, why do we even do Christmas? You know, it almost feels like
it's pagan.
We're being put into these energy flows on a yearly schedule to siphon our energy and harvest our energy. Like we are having a New Year's Eve thing here, but like New Year's Eve celebrations are not really falling on the new year.
No.
That's more like a March 21st thing. Like astrologically, the year begins on March 21st. And so when we just get this impression that everything has stopped and started again at a time that's actually kind of the height of the year, because we're in Capricorn, Aquarius, then we're maybe losing track of our momentum. Maybe we feel like we failed something that hasn't really fully come to fruition yet. It's an interruption.
Yes.
If you're not
at the wrong time.
Right.
On purpose.
Right.
On purpose. That's the point.
So
because even the story of Christmas is the birth of Christ. But really it's the birth of Christ after resurrection from being Jesus in the 3 days of resurrection, right? To Christ, because Jesus and Christ are two different energies. So it's the birth of the Christ-like energy, which they associate it with the birth of the physical Jesus, right? And then on the Passover, during the beginning of the year, when we have Easter, that's the death of Christ, the christening, like of him on the cross, which it's quite the opposite. That's like the life of Jesus itself, like the birth of Jesus, the sun rising, you know?
Right. And so when we get influenced and stripped of our connection to natural cycles, we lose our rhythmic connection to all life. You know, there are different points in the year. Not every day in the year is the same day. And so when we can't find our sync up with natural cycles, we lose that potency.
It's like a bad DJ mix. Like
exactly.
When, it's a train. We call that a train wreck in DJing. Like if the DJ doesn't get the pitch right, doesn't have it at the right moment, it's a train wreck. It just goes, and then you hear the person go into the next track, and you're like, oh, that really sounded real smooth.
That's why I love following the Gene Keys transits, because it's literally sourced from the I Ching, which is a direct reflection not only of our genetic code, but of just the cycles and systems of nature itself. And like what I've been doing with clients is helping them recalibrate their natural cycles just by coaching them through 1 week at a time of the gene keys transits, so that, yeah, no matter what's happening out there in like Western culture, we have this deeper connection of growth, you know, of the year and the winding pattern that it takes. And we get that energy and that amplitude and that activation from these key points so much more strongly. And then because we're not in these chaotic energy flows that were designed to rob us of our agency and our energy, we have more consistency. We have more ability to keep our presence and our groundedness, because we're not just, you know, a lone particle bouncing around in some made up flow. We're actually aligned with all that is, every cycle in our galaxy.
Well, it's just like whether it's I Ching, knowing, you know, what gene key comes before the next one, and then reflecting back on that. It's like when I do tarot with Jax and a card pulls up, I know that I can talk with Jax. He's the only person I know, and it's funny because it's kind of sad. I'll talk to a lot of tarot people and be like, oh yeah, so yeah, star card comes after the tower, and they'll be like, what? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and it's like, how do you not know the whole story of the tarot? Or like, how do you not know the whole story of the I Ching? Or I don't know the galactic code, but thank God I have Abby here, who's like, oh yeah, so it moved into this cycle, and we went to this portal, and this is where you are, you're a warrior, and this is where this is. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then how she starts showing me. What you're saying is, I think the complete understanding of the universe is alignment, period. In your soul, yourself, your mind, your body, your soul, spirit, the earth, the universe and nature itself. The planets are nature. Like,
absolutely.
Like, it's not like they're separate from nature. Nature, like, that's the weird thing, is like, there's also that association that nature goes only on Earth, and then it's like the planets are not nature. Like that's separate. That's space. That's not nature. It's like, what do you mean? That is nature. And you know, there's astrologers out there, and especially in the past, that really associate that, like, people that are actually of the divine are connected to nature. And it doesn't mean that it has to be like because you hugged a tree today, but it's that you have put the beauty, the time, the energetic space to connect with nature and to listen to nature and to feel nature. But I think also what we're seeing in the media and stuff is like, you know, with climate change and all this stuff, it's like you're not paying attention to nature or something like that. It's like there is so much that nature's telling us. Sure, it's telling us on that front too, but there are so many signals right in front of you every day to help you understand what's going on, and being aligned and being, like you were just saying, like in sync. Which,
yeah,
you know,
because we're receptive beings. You know, we respond to life. Life comes into us and we respond. And I think one of the biggest vanities that's sold to us by our culture is that we're in control of everything, and everything just is created from us. And it's like the most potent creators, the most powerful rulers, the most brilliant minds and philosophers were people who had enough space within their being to connect to something greater than themselves and learn something greater than one human normally could, or achieve something more than one human normally could. So it's like, yeah, when you grow up in a society that tells you got to make everything happen yourself, that's actually, it sounds empowering, but it's actually very disempowering, because you're leaving out the very fundamental component that made your life possible, which is nature. And, you know, I guess on a more macro level, that's just the movement of energy in this dynamic kind of machine that we live in.
I love this comment from a viewer. Everyone loses their shit over Christmas, and it's literally just a day. I'm over it. And I like on how that perspective is like, what makes that day more important than today, this moment, this hour, this minute, right now, right? Like, because that's where I think this portal also made me kind of realize, like, every moment I'm going through at this moment is the moment. And I know that's very Eckhart Tolle. It's very, you know, but these are great teachers that really, at a time, especially when that book came out, Power of Now, like, that was not a time where people were paying attention to that at all, you know?
No, it was, I think that was written in 1999.
Oh, really? I think it was.
The Power of Now. Because when I read it again, because I tried reading it, and then when I read it again, like 10 years later, I felt like I almost could have written it.
Right.
You know, it was such an alien thought when I first read it.
But so
But
basic in principle and very easy read and very,
Yeah.
once you understand a flow. I actually read one of his books, Stillness Speaks, which is a little bit smaller.
yeah,
And I really associated with that one the most.
and the New Earth.
And that one was really good
It's-
too.
But the power of now is the thing that completely changed my life.
Yeah, me too.
Because in any moment when things are chaotic, when you can just stop and realize, like, this is chaotic because, like, maybe the bank called, or maybe your car breaks down, or maybe your kids got in a fight. It's like all those things are happening, but it's like when you just stop and you realize that that happened over there, and right now, this second, I can take a breath, and in this second, I'm okay. It doesn't matter that the bank called. It doesn't matter that the kids are in a fight, because now in the next minute you can handle that because you're more centered, and you look at it a little bit differently, and that is the power of being
Of acceptance.
of human.
Truly,
yeah.
the power of now is the power of accepting.
Right.
Because without accepting the now, you're never going to get to the next step to handle what happened in the
Right.
now.
And what
You know?
what blew my mind about that is, like, I didn't watch TV, and I probably have talked about that here before, but I really didn't watch TV. And I went to my parents' house, and and CNN was on, and I remember getting so upset. I think it was around the time that shooting happened in Mandalay Bay. And
Oh, the
I
Vegas shooting.
sat there, oh my God, I was so upset and freaked out about it. And all of a sudden, I was like, shut that off for just a minute and get back into right here, right now, because yes, that is happening there, and it is tragic. But that does not mean that I am in that portal right now. You know, I'm not there. The only reason I'm in that portal is because I watched it on my TV. And I think for people that are getting upset over things, because we are going to see stuff come out, you know, like you guys are doing that documentary on the Salem witch trials, and the things that could be coming up now that parallel.
Which,
You
I don't
know?
know if you saw it today, but President Trump wrote a letter to Nancy Pelosi and brought that people during the Salem witch trials were given more. I forgot
Really,
his
he did
line.
say that.
Yeah, it was an actual official letter today.
Wow.
And he used that as his.
Okay, he has to have an astrologer,
I
or
know.
he's watching
Right.
you.
Yeah.
Like
I
there's
don't know.
n-
But I want to say this really quick, because the day of the shooting, I was at the World Finals jet skiing, and I had a family reunion for my grandmother, my dad's mom's side of the family, which my Michigan side, which I really have not gotten too deep into. A lot of us haven't. And they were all in Vegas to meet for this family reunion, so I was already going, and it happened to be the morning me driving right from the night after the shooting. So I go to Vegas, you know, Las Vegas Boulevard, the windows are out on Mandalay Bay, like the news media are there and everything. And, you know, it's a big deal, but I go through, and everybody, like, it was kind of like weird. Nobody was walking on the strip that night. Everybody was staying in the hotels, right? But I was like, at the same time, because it was really big, but I feel like what's happening is when you get all that consciousness of the planet and all those people enhancing it, because that's really what the media is doing, right?
Yes.
They're enhancing it. And so it's creating, but what I've noticed about this impeachment right now is it's not really people are like, I can give a flying F. It's not even
Yeah.
about political things. It's just like, we're kind of sick of everything being like, is that as serious at the moment as like, what else is going on in the world that we're not being told right now?
Right.
Like, we're not being told about anything in the news. That's it. That's the only news we see, literally. Once in a while, there's a couple little things that pop up, but it's like, that's how much energy and attention is being put on something, and it's like, it's not working. So it's like kind of a weird thing right now, where it's like people are actually unplugging and tuning into different areas, and then you notice at the same time that that's also where this kind of censorship thing is kind of going on to kind of reel people back, which I think is because when you I mean, look at how networks are being done, like whether it's YouTube or people are now scattering their energies everywhere, and so the collective energies are kind of all over the place now, to where it's not consolidated on one thing that they want to feed and harvest.
Right.
that fear, or even a positive thing, right? Like, I don't know.
That's why I think it's really important for people to remember that you've got the control over how many bites of that you're going to chew at a time.
Right.
You don't have to watch it for,
Well,
hours. You can digest
I know
it.
this might sound kind of messed up because actually my step cousin was there at the shooting. So her friends died. Like, it was traumatic for her,
Yes.
right? Like, very traumatic. So I have other friends that were there, but I said to my family when they didn't want to go outside, I'm like, the last thing that's going to happen right now at a place that this happened is right here. So I'm like, I'm going outside. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not afraid because they already happened, right? So I don't know. But what I think my last point there was just that it was not, it's almost like a movie set, right?
Yeah.
When you see this big movie on TV, and then when you go to the set, you're like, oh, or when people come here and they see like this stage or whatever. Actually, this is a big stage, but like, the other stage, like, they're like, oh, this is all it is? It's like, yeah, that's TV. It's like when you're there, it's like, oh, it was this big, and the way that it's pronounced, and the music, and the breaking news,
Yes.
right? Like, all of that is just mystifying you into this, and then pulling your energy away, and that's the holiday thing too, of like, ha ha ha, and time of year, and Hanukkah too, and everything. Like, it's a very, very, very big matrix, red pill, blue pill, like, already ingested, already chosen, but with the chance to take that red pill the last second and wash down the blue pill with another red pill or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just a good thing to go over the examples of ways that there are those portals and how we can get sucked in or not, And it's not to say that I didn't have compassion for what was going on, because one of the people that I went to high school with was even shot in that.
Right.
And I had friends that were there. And I think that's probably why I was so upset. But it was like, even in that, like, the trick is for all of us, the collective, is that when things like that are happening, the true power is when you can just center back in and remember that the sun is still there, the earth is still rotating on its axis, there's still stars, dogs are still barking, cats are still meowing, it's like, it's okay. And that's just the trick we all have to remember as the chaos comes up in our life.
And that's how we stamp that shit out, is by not putting coins in that box every time it gets pushed in our face.
Right.
That's a revolutionary act in this day and age, is just to reclaim your consciousness from the harvesting that is going on every day. And it's that simple too. That's the cool part. We don't need to go out there and have these, that's fine. You can have rallies and stuff, but the real activism comes with how you use your time, energy, and consciousness in response to that stuff because if it's shown that it doesn't work, it's not going to keep happening.
Right.
Whether it's been created or whether it's just arising out of the collective because it's in our collective consciousness, either way, if we reclaim those moments of trauma and terror with compassion, then we neutralize, we alchemize, we transmute. So that's what we got to do.
I like the way you use the word harvesting with it too. And I think if we can remember, that's exactly what's happening. It's like, are we going to feed fear? Or
no.
No, I do think, though, what's kind of beautiful about this energy is, one, this is not really a time for revolutions in the way that you just mentioned of rioting, or I keep getting Martin Luther King, but it's not a moment for a Martin Luther King moment yet, just because people right now have to, this is where people decide whether they are Martin Luther Kings or not, basically. He's been coming up so much, even in all my mixes, and but the way that he stood at that time, but like, that's what Aquarius and all the Aquarian, but this is Capricorn. This is where people make their concrete kind of, either Saturn is, and Capricorn is very weird to me, because it is either complete, stoppage and blockage and restriction, or quite the opposite of, like, I am making it all the way to the top, which is very mind-boggling, actually. And so, and it's about authority and inner authority that you take within yourself, which is the ultimate of self-worth, which is Taurus, the first earth sign, and then Virgo, which is like knowing how to navigate, figure it out, and put yourself in a process that you can really attain those bigger goals. Like if you don't have that self-worth, you don't have those tools, you don't have a routine and rhythm and know how to discern from what's pure and what's impure, then you're not going to get to a position to where you can really rise to a high vibration, as far as like, because there is something to say, even though Saturn doesn't get technically the high vibrational planet, it's more the lower one. There is a high vibration of Saturn, of you reaching into your inner authority and getting in just to the position, whatever that position is in the matrix, the reality, or the position in your life that you want to be, you know?
Yeah, that's why I feel like all of this that we're going through right now and that portal that we just went through is self-mastery. I mean, we are walking out of this thing, if we choose to, prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are prepared. We know that it is an arduous climb.
Yeah.
And we also know we've got the supplies to make it. We know that there is a network of support along the trip. You know, it's choosing to look at it in a way that I know I've got a trek. And I also know that I am perfectly capable of making this trek. And I know I'm going to go through shit along the way.
Yeah.
And I'm making up my mind right now. These are my boundaries. This is the choice that I'm making, and I'm standing tall and I'm taking it on. You know, like
it's like Jack's talk this weekend, which was very, I mean, I'm just going to fluff you a little bit with some feathers here.
He's been speaking highly.
I've been speaking highly. That was one bad-ass talk.
He just re-listened to it.
I've re-listened to it 3 times, so, but I would love for you to tell people if they haven't heard it yet, especially what got me the most was when you were really owning your part in the people that you had chosen, and even though they weren't the right people, there was something about how you owned those choices and how they were the right choices too.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest parts of it, is just no longer offsetting responsibility onto other people. Like, just don't give other people the responsibility of your life, because like you have that choice, and it's exactly like the harvesting thing. Like, you don't have to shut down CNN or some other news organization. You don't have to go for that. You have to do less. If you want to prepare for the journey, just do less. Like, start to recognize areas in which there's harvesting being done, and then step away from that. And then you'll be surprised because of the amount of energy you have access to after that. But yeah, it's like, own the situations that you're in, own the people that you're surrounding yourselves with, and recognize the truth is that if you're surrounding yourself with really negative people, and it's because you're doing that to yourself. It's because you're deciding that that's your destiny, that you want a negative destiny. And so the only way out is just by no longer making that choice and just choosing people that want to succeed themselves and want you to succeed.
And that's where Venus comes into Aquarius this week, and it squares Uranus. And those are the 2 planets that deal with relationships, and they both are mutually intercepted, which means Uranus is in Taurus, would rather be in Aquarius, and Venus is in Aquarius, would rather be in Taurus, right? So they're both like looking at each other like, you want to switch spots, but we're not able to. And this is revolutionary because this is rare, and it's especially new to the energy we've been into with Uranus and Taurus. And so, you know, this week, there's a lot of major relationship stuff coming. And I feel like in Capricorn, it's been like the watching the dominoes line up. And we almost don't, and then it's going into a, you know, like a complete like fireworks show of like, who knows, like, right? So I'm pretty excited to see what happens. But at the same token, I feel like, and I don't know why I got the term when you were saying all that, Jax, is like the people we do associate and hang around, and if it is in alignment with our true self and our vibration, it's a little bit of an actual, and I don't want to like, but I'm going to say it, it's a safeguard. It does keep you safe. It does, because you're not going to be perfect in who you are. We're still learning to transmute the energy we've been talking about earlier today. We're not perfect. We're always going to still be a little bit off. But there is something to say when you're in the right container of the right people, but you know that they also support you, and you know you're on the right train, you know you're on the right tracks, you know the right destiny. There's something to say that you're not going to go too far off in the wrong direction because of that safeguard of that. Like, that makes sense?
It's like a naturally occurring safeguard without dependence. Like, it's just something that it's almost like, it's just like if you're surrounded by literal light everywhere, like spiders just can't go in that room because it's too bright for them. Like, they just have to leave. So, it's like.
So this weekend I didn't do anything, literally. So I love the Eagles. They're one of my favorite bands, and they broke up for a long time, and then they got back in 1994. And Joe Walsh, the guitarist, he was a badass, but he was a big drug addict, and he was a big alcoholic, and he his solo career really didn't do that well in the 80s, like Don Henley and and so long story short was when they got back together, they sat him down, and they said like, hey, if we're gonna do this, like, you're gonna have to get sober. And he looked at them and he said, I'll do it. And even though, there's that whole, like, you should want to do it for yourself kind of thing. But there was something about it for him. It's like, no, this is my tribe. This is my group. They make me better at doing my music. They make me better at doing what I'm doing in my life. And this is going to help me for my family. They have their families. There was something about it that, like, it was nervous for him to even go on stage and sing in the documentary of the Eagles. I love that documentary. It's an amazing story, the Eagles' whole story. But I love that story because it reminds me of, like, you know what? When you're around that right tribe, when you have that pack, like, people will tell you when you're off in the really, really wrong areas. You know what I mean? Like, they'll sit you down and be like, you're destroying your life right now. You know what I mean? Like, and he was destroying his life. I mean, he was like on camera going, like, like falling asleep. Like, it was not good, And I see there's a lot of that escapism right now going around.
Talking about South Park, people need to see that. People need to see that one on. It's called Cheesin'.
Mm.
Did you ever see that?
No, I can't.
They would escape through. They would hold a cat up and let him spray him, and they called it Cheesin'. And then they would go into this giant trip, and they would think that they were marrying beautiful women and having all these experiences, but really they were just laid out on the ground. And their friends are all like, wake up, get up. But that escapism, I mean, you got to love South Park.
Yeah, you do.
My kids introduced me to that because it just speaks so much truth.
So it's interesting. Some people are saying wolf pack. I like that. Eagle Scout.
So we're like reinvesting. This is a pattern I think I'm seeing with this Capricorn energy is we're reinvesting in things that can really hold us to the form that we want to see ourselves take. And we're also reinvesting energy that before was kind of taken just by obligation and by groupthink and peer pressure, and we're reinvesting that in things that actually make sense to us.
Yeah.
And I mean, Capricorn is kind of like a monetary energy, so it kind of makes sense that it's
the highest of the monetary energies,
Right. So it's like, this is your insurance policy, is the people that you are connected to in your immediate reality. This is your retirement account. This is your, mastermind group, even if it's not. These are the people whose consciousness is feeding you. Are you being influenced to your highest good? Or are you being corrupted by your influences?
The true 401k of life is the 11th house, people, friends. And because let's say something goes wrong in life, like you can call that friend up and be like, hey, so-and-so, or you got that going on, and that moves to that, and da-da-da-da. And the more you do have, that's a good circle around you, you'll make it through. I always tell people, like, the best thing you can do in life is not burn bridges. Like, some of them might be tarnished, but I'm not one to just completely burn a bridge. Completely, like implode it, like, except the military. But actually, even then, it was a handshake, so it was cool. But that's the true 401k. I like how Dylan is saying that that's an insurance policy. It really is. But I think that it's more than just that. It's like both. It's an insurance policy and it's a safeguard. It's an alarm. It's a fire alarm. That's your fire alarm system.
Yeah, pay attention to the clues. Like if you're getting ready for a party and you're like, oh, I can't believe I have to see so-and-so, or you're complaining, or, you know.
Well,
like,
because they're also your other, as you talk about eyes earlier, they're your other eyes on things that you might not be seeing too.
right.
You know? Because they can see behind you, which you can't.
Very true.
They can see all angles, especially the more of a tribe you have. Like, they can see. Like, I really don't know what my butt looks like. Kind of, right? You know, like, you look in the mirror and you're kind of like, I guess that's what it looks like, but you'll never know really in a physical sense.
If it was the skinny mirror or the fat mirror.
Or any of that. It's just, you just kind of don't know, right? You're just kind of like, I mean, you see, I think mirrors are a weird thing. Like, you know, like, sure, we are seeing a reflection of ourselves, but we're not actually seeing the full true reflection either. Never.
That's true.
Never.
Today is mirror too, isn't it? I think.
In the
I think
galactic
it must
code?
be
Yeah.
Earth.
Is it Earth today?
Like red
I
Earth
was
or
trying to
something.
look ahead too to see what it was on Christmas. Because I was like, what are we going to be seeing?
What are we going to be seeing on Christmas?
It was world. It's a planet. It's planetary, which means that it's the perfect day to
for an eclipse?
to manifest, like to manifest what you would want to see, and it is about bridging the worlds and like using
Right.
using the messages that we get from spirit to make choices that help us evolve into a better life. So it couldn't be more perfect.
Right.
Like human
for what
chain
you've been
vibes.
saying. Yeah.
Like we are the world. All linking hands around the big globe.
Yeah, and you know, there's so much that is going on, but I do kind of want to set that intention out there to people that this is a serious time, but this can be really fun about choosing your path right now.
Yeah.
So it's serious, but it doesn't have to be, because it could be really fun choosing that road in life right now. Those choices, like, make this exciting.
Right.
We all have impact right now. Like we're not just clicking one box or, you know, ordering something online. We're like moving on our soul's path. We're changing the world. We're being placed where we will need to be to link to those correct communities that are going to be the supportive aspects. And also on a like even larger scale, you know, we're being placed in a way that we probably can't even fully grasp. You know, you may have opportunities coming into your life that may seem risky or scary or serious, but you're probably being offered those things because you're needed somewhere else for a reason that maybe you don't even know yet.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the revolution is like being available to go where spirit needs you, to be with people that spirit needs you to be around, and to not necessarily have to know why 100%, but just to keep that light of awareness and that presence within you. Because yeah, maybe I was being taken out to LA twice in a week just so I could be in LA and just vibe out in a place that doesn't usually have a vibe like mine.
Yeah, you got to
Who
still
knows?
come chill at my spot.
I know, I
I
gotta
got
come
to take
visit
Jack's and you up.
you. Yeah, we will.
I did take Abby. Abby's been.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It is mirror today. It was, and it just changed at midnight
To what?
to storm, which is, this is the thing to remember. Storms
like
cause
that.
change, and hurricanes can tear things up, but you can always navigate to the eye of the storm. And the eye of the storm in a hurricane is it's miles wide sometimes.
Yeah, and
So-
hurricanes can finally move that piece of crap boat that needed to be moved, that nobody
Yeah.
else would move, in the right place.
And hurricanes, it's like if a hurricane's coming, everything stops. And you go inland or you do whatever you have to do. That's when you realize that there's what's really important in life. That's when you pick up the things that you truly care about, your pictures or your pieces of jewelry, or you see what's important. You take those things. You don't keep on carrying them. If you're caught in the storm, you would even drop those things. you still have your body, you're doing good.
Yeah, it's interesting that we're going into that because we're going to have the 3/4 square of the moon in Virgo to the sun in Sag, which is very mutable and very stormy. Whenever you get the mutables, it's always in a T-square cross. It's like mutable change. But it's interesting because it's like these minute changes in your reality that create huge opportunity right now.
That's why they say cataclysmic agent of change.
So it's like I'm imagining it's almost like on how, I mean, if you think about how an atom bombs work, right? Like they were able to splice an atom to create such fusion, explosion, that these are like micro hurricanes right now in these tiny spaces that are coming in to turn you into, the galactic center is where we go tonight, tomorrow, and to the next day. I mean, we're going into it with the sun. So it's like, you have to be real too about that transit and be like, there is something to say that this is a really, that's why I don't know. The term today for me wasn't fate, wasn't destiny. It's been played out, I feel, too much. And I do kind of like, this whole Providence, because there's a deeper connection to spirit, I feel, with that word. Like, even though fate and destiny have kind of a time understanding, I feel like Providence has like an understanding of it more being of a spiritual divine time than a time that's through spirit, if that makes sense. It's a top down opposed to a bottom up. Does that make sense? And I feel like we're at that kind of a feeling now, is like accepting the down to the top from the bottom, opposed from us looking at it from the bottom to the top. That's what we're always doing in life anyways. We're always looking at us and to God, and us to spirit, and us to, I feel like now it's like, no, we're letting spirit come down into us and reflecting back up that way, opposed to it starting from here, going there and coming back. It's like a flip, which I think is a lot more powerful coming down, and I think it's a lot more easier too, to be honest with you. Like,
if we think about it, I mean, that's how heaven gets to walk around on earth.
Yeah.
In these bodies that it's been pushed down into. So
and the way you worded that, it's like you're letting God do his thing. You're letting spirit decide to actually start sending you some blessings instead of you trying to control it, or you trying to manufacture it or create that ladder that's high enough.
Yeah, and so as we come into Capricorn this weekend, so it's going to be the Sun and Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto. So we have the three biggest energies. So the Sun and Jupiter are humongous, even though Jupiter's nowhere near the size of the Sun, but the Sun's huge. But Jupiter's huge. And then Saturn's their second biggest planet. And then you got Pluto, which, even though it might be the small guy, it's definitely the impactful one in the most sense of it's like an atom bomb, It really can implode or explode. It's the subwoofer, to your speaker system. And we already have the biggest lot of speakers. Now you're adding a sub, boom,
I see like the Sun and Jupiter are this golden rose, and Pluto is that evolutionary force that tells the rose blossom. I think everyone will have some blossoming in their life this coming week.
Yes. 100%.
Yes.
I actually feel there's a couple. This week kind of does a and then a wham, like it just a quantum leap, and it's gonna be mind blowing. And I think that's what's interesting, is it's usually right when you're like, all right, I've done all we were talking about that work of that transmutation and turning the energy around and getting to the accepting part of like back to, I think what the portal did was kind of carry, kind of seduce you into no, back to okay, and then to where you're accepting now, and then here you go. You know what I mean? Like,
that's good. I think that's true.
It's true. Yeah. And I think that's what I'm feeling, is that it's also a question of whether you're sane or not sane, I feel, in a way of like, I'm feeling this energy. I'm feeling like I see how it's going. And there's the excitement of like, is it going to go that way? At least
Yeah.
not the whole way, right? But it's like the understanding of, I feel it's gonna, it's just those microcosm, little synchronicities that you just know will lead you right, and you'll be like, yeah, there it is. Yep. And it's not this major, oh my gosh, like it looked exactly like this and da da da. Like it's just more of like, oh yeah, there's markers from spirit, there's markers from your own intuition that need to be seen, and I think that this is a very big test to hold that space for trusting in the markers showing up, even when it looks like, because I was thinking of a blind corner, right? It's like, I don't see anything. And then finally you get to the corner and you turn around. It's like, oh, it's right there.
Well, that's a
Like,
good
you know what I
analogy
mean?
for Christmas too, because like think about all the times that you buy your kids a present and maybe they weren't happy with the present. And it's like, wow, but this was like expensive and it was
Right.
it was a big deal what I'm giving you, and but they don't get it. And maybe that's what's happening in the universe too at this time. Like we don't want to be whiners about the presents that we do get that come out of nowhere. Like we don't see what it could be giving us. So,
Well, maybe it's the truth of the meek will inherit the earth. The ones that are ready for coal are going to get gifts, and the ones that are expecting the gifts to be such, because South Node in
Yeah.
Jupiter becomes the over optimist, and K2, which is the South Node, is about truly learning to release and close. So this is about taking old belief systems, old ideas, old opinions, and old perceptions of the way that we expect things to look and see, and dropping them into the, like, just dropping them, like, just like letting them implode out. And the sun's gonna, be on top of that. And the sun on the South Node is not, it's very karmic. It's very, K2 is dealing with your past life karma. We're dealing with a collective past life karma issue at the moment as well, coming up here on this big turn. So whether or not, and if I were to actually look at this from a very, very weird channeled aspect, I mean, this kind of is matrixy of like, Neo had been there 6 times before about whether or not humanity survives or not by the choice he makes. Like there is something to say, like humanity's been to this place before, or maybe we're all realizing we've all been through this tape before, and there's an awareness of that, and there's this awareness of like, I have this choice to choose this way now. I don't want to play. I know it took 220 million fucking years for this to come back. Like, I do not want to play the same choice again. I'm going to choose this one, even though I've been so seduced to always go to that one.
Oh yeah, that's it. Nail on the head.
And it's a collective one. But I think that if enough people are making the choice that is different, it still will be okay.
Spiritual maturity. Make that mature choice. Because, the young in us wants to go for what's fast and fun and pleasurable. But Capricorn, again, is favoring those who are going to step up into a more mature, long-range choice. So, if you find yourself in that spot next week, maybe be ready to make the hard choice. Maybe be ready to make the painful choice even. When you got to get a rotten tooth pulled out, it hurts. But it's like getting so much weight pulled off your shoulders that your body doesn't have to deal with that stress.
Yeah, and you get a cap on your tooth for a week while you wait for your, crown to come in. Like, you're going to be fine.
Yeah. So maybe short-term discomfort, short-term just maybe, unpleasant.
Well, Saturn does rule the teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Like my Saturn return, that came up root canal right away.
Whoa.
But it's very Scorpio Saturn I have, so it was like, I'm feeling drill in my...
Oh, gosh.
That was not fun. And that actually started my panic of having Saturn in Scorpio. Like, imagine that, being born with that. That's like horror movie, Saturn return. So, teeth problems
I'm glad
do
you
come
made
up
it.
during this time. I'm
glad you made it through that.
Oh yeah, no, it makes you very confident and strong and stuff on the other side. It's just I used to be afraid of fun houses and scary things.
I'm still afraid of spiders.
Yeah, you are. Depends on
For
the
now.
spider. But I think that's where we're at. And I think this was a great combo tonight. And I think that, gosh, I just feel like there's just like this one thing where I'll have to hit before we go here, because it is actually so big. But I guess that maybe part of that too is just like allowing it to be and knowing that people know. And especially when you all watch Deep Astrology, which of course I'm going to go upload and premiere for everyone. Even I ran the helio charts. Everything is pointing towards the partnerships we align with as a major part of the story. Because of the Saturn-Pluto cycle ending in Libra from 82 and 83 to seeing what's going to happen on the eclipses with Venus. Like even this, I looked at the helio chart for the solstice, and it was like Neptune and Venus conjunct. It was Jupiter and Uranus in exact trine. Because you got to remember that in helio, when the sun's at the center, the time's different and there's no retrogrades. So sometimes, and that's how you can tell how weird we are around the sun. Like Mars is actually in Libra right now, like it's not in Scorpio yet, because we're getting closer. We're a year faster around the sun than Mars. So we have just made the turn towards Mars. So that means we're going to start to see Mars, because now we're coming between Mars and the sun, where this last year we were on the opposite side of the sun from Mars. That's why we didn't see Mars all year, because when we look up at the sun, it's like, oh, behind Mars. Okay, I can't see that. And it's a Mars retrograde year. So it's like coming up in 2020. So we're coming around this corner right now. And now we're starting to get, oh, there's Mars, Ooh. Oh, wow. And look at it's weird how Earth can kind of come around and, see things. But it's weird as a helio, because it's almost like God's bird's eye view on the solar system. And how, oh, yeah, I'm seeing how Earth's doing that and how Mars is looking there and how. So our Earth point of view as astrologers is way different than the view from up top. And the view from up top, it's interesting to see that some things happen earlier, like precursors, or they're post of what we went through on Earth, and kind of drill it in fully. But that's what's the unique thing, is that what I've noticed with God and Spirit and the universe is there isn't a pattern yet I have been able to see of post and like pre and exact. Like it's like, wow. It's like, wow, you're going pre first and then post on Earth, and then, or you're going pre up there to set us up, like we're feeling it, and then it solidifies on Earth, like from that, that's where I'm having my own dissertation of astrology, and it's gonna be a long one.
When I lived in Jackson, I lived on a mountain, and from my house to figure out how to get up the mountain, I couldn't see through all the bushes. Like I'd have to go to a little trail and climb up this mountain. And then when I would get up beyond the trees, I could look down and see the perfect route that I could have gotten there from my house. And what I learned from that is that in our life now, it's really easy to look back and see this trail. Like if you climb to, like look at it from the side of 100,000 feet even, look at all the choices that you've made in your life and see where you wish you would have done this when you did that. And from that point, you can recast your past and know what you have to do now in making these decisions. I mean, we've been given every single tool that we need to know. And now it's just about actually doing it, making the choices as they come.
It's, yeah. And you can't get weird on other people about how they make their choices if you're connected to that. This is gonna be, I think, the biggest one is like learning to just, all right, not also judging people as if like, gosh, because the twin flame thing goes around a lot, whether that's friendships or anything, right? It's kind of like, my twin wouldn't act like that or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like everybody's unique. So there is something to say about like, sure, there are people that act like the way that you do, and those sometimes don't work out at all. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, you know, that actually the ones that in life are the ones that are not acting the way that you expect them to act, or make choices differently, or have to process things emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically differently, usually are the ones that actually are in a better alignment for us in our lives, instead of it being so, yeah, it's the same thing exactly, right? But there's a lot of commonality and there's a lot of similarity, but when you get down to it, there is something to say about, wow, I'm being taught something deep.
I think how you say that it's about relationships, we touched on this last week too, but our true soulmate, in my opinion, is our body. I mean, that's what we really need to be focusing on right now too, is when you honor your true soulmate, that will help carry you through. You know, our soulmate will help us walk through this path too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of the work for, we are this week coming into 7 years since the Mayan calendar shift. And I think 7 is, such a beautiful number. It's the spiritual number. And it is the end of the decade. It is, especially I play with cards of truth. Like you go through progression of 7 years of cards, the sun, the moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and then Saturn. That's how they do your progression of 7 days a week, 7 years. It's all sevens. I love that system. And so it's interesting that this would be the final card draw on that, this cycle of the Mayan calendar one, which goes into the December 21st, 2020 of next year, which will be an 8, which would actually reset if you looked at a 7 number system. But if we actually go into the 9 number system, it would be an 8, which would be the most intense as far as, activation of the Mayan calendar system shift. And it's exactly the date that Jupiter and Saturn meet at 0 Aquarius for the first time in hundreds of years. Jupiter and Saturn being in an air sign, and also ending a 20-year cycle, which was pre-2012 in Taurus, but exactly in December 21st, a year from this weekend, is Jupiter-Saturn's meeting. And it's at 0 Aquarius, where this weekend, or actually this week, while the sun's at the galactic center, while we're having all this, Venus is exactly at 0 Aquarius, relationships at that spot. So there's something about the relationships that are drawn up this week, or the choices we make in them, or the existing ones, or so whatever, they're coming into their greatest harvest on December 21st of 2020, which is kind of ironic.
New Earth soulmates on the rise.
There's a lot of that. And so, but that kind of goes with the twin flame thing.
No, it's different.
I know, I feel like, it's a different thing. It's a.
I just made it up. It can't be the same.
Don't make up another one, man.
What I'm trying to say is, I think that the identification, and Craig and I talked about it on our show, Full Disclosure, which is tomorrow night, by the way. It doesn't have to be defined so, like, it's only about twin flames. Like, it's like there is something to say of, like, whether you define it yourself or whether there's just this enrichment of, and it's not just about romance either. It's like, it's about tribe. It's about soul fam. It's about friendship. It's about, sure, there's lovers in there. Sure, there's a lot of that divine connection of people and relationships that feel right. And it's like, there's a lot that already do. This is like these last callings of who are those last people that really feel that way. And then moving into where that's how tribe comes together, because other tribes are going to meet other tribes that go, yeah. And then, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it reminds me of a puzzle, because they're complete as a tribe, and they start interlinking.
I heard so many times at the event that we just did on the 12th, how people were saying they felt like they'd finally found like a true soul family. Like, I don't know how many times, I know you heard it too. And to me, that is beautiful because it's just as you did describe it. I mean, sometimes I think we're searching for a twin flame because maybe it is our twin too that is in another, dimension. Maybe, I mean, there are so many things that twin flame could mean. But the essence of it is, if you can burn this feeling in your heart, you'll connect it. Is that if you have that flame burning in you as you expect your twin to be burning it in them, if that's really the case, you will meet them. I mean, that is 100% accurate in my opinion. And so it's all about like your true belief system. What type of people do you want in your life? Maybe your soulmate really, I mean, it's a physical body, but every single time that it's come up in my chart or in a reading that you're going to meet a soulmate this week, what I meet is another female that is so much like me. I feel like this is a time that when we are just our purest essence, and it's, would you want to meet someone that is just like you in this moment? Is that what your relationship would look like? If it's not, then, make these changes as quick as you can of what you want to meet up with, because it is potent time for that, to magnetize whatever we are. I think that's why it's so important just to be the best self that we can possibly be.
Yeah, and not be afraid to put the vision. I mean, it's a little bit like old school, like vision board in yourself and your soul, but it's important during a galactic center sun conjunction. It is the vision board of the sun comes to a place to where you have a moment where it's like, let me redo the vision board this year.
I really believe that we would not have dreams if they were impossible. So if we have the dream that we are supposed to be with somebody, then of course that's going to happen.
I mean, when we came up with this idea, that Saturn was at the galactic center. Mm-hmm. So that's once every 30 years. So that's kind of like this is a big time to look at the drawing board. And, it was there for a couple of weeks while you and I were talking and all that. And we actually went through pretty quick, more than most people. But there is something to say about, they do happen. They really do. We're sitting on this stage right now, and it was just like a little idea.
Yeah.
And 2 chairs.
That we didn't even know what it looked like fully.
We didn't even know how it was going to work. But there was a lot of faith. There was a lot of vision. And there was just a lot of trust and spirit.
And a lot of action.
And a lot of action. Right? And, and it's here. So if that's possible with Saturn, I mean, with the sun, it's like your sun card, right, Jax? Like it can be fun. It can be an experience.
Yeah, and it's simplicity. It's like with the sun, it's like you essentially have to decide what you're going to do with the information and no longer decide whether or not you're going to look at the information. And it's like at that event and at the upcoming event, like the amount of like essays I received from people about how moved they were by some of the cool, the panel that we had, and by the art wall, and just the feeling that was there. And some of the people that showed up here, it was just like, it was like magic. And it was magic because it was created with simplicity out of pure intention. Like it was very clear intention. Like, let's create some love. Like, let's just make some love. So it's like, that's what I'm feeling for this upcoming event as well. It's like, the sun's revealing light. Like, let's bring truth here and let's celebrate the truth, instead of thinking that we need to have the most truth and that we need to, sort of isolate ourselves, gather as much truth as possible, and then like win a truth competition or something. Like, it's time to just, be part of the tribe. And just treating yourself that way first, just building a relationship with love as if love is its own entity. And then once you have a good relationship with your self-love and with love itself, then you'll know exactly what kind of people will be able to bring that to you as well, and who won't. Because so much of love and friendships and, breakups and falling outs is just about the fact that you clearly didn't assess that person totally didn't have what it takes to love you right now. Like, just with the tools that they had, if you know how to love yourself, you're like, okay, that person can definitely love me.
Yeah, it feels like a graduation week because
Yeah.
I love how the sun card is where you stop looking at information. You just choose that this is what it is. And
Yeah.
right? It's like you're committed to your consciousness is not looking anymore, but that's what it is. I love because it's always a little child on a horse riding
Yeah.
in the beautiful field and having the time of its life. Like it's not questioning whether or not it should be riding the horse or should be enjoying the horse or should it be out in the day? Should it be inside playing video games? Should it be at school? Right? Like none of that's going on. It's just, but there's something to say that now that all the Sag is ending and it's all Capricorn, it reminds me of kids when they leave college and they go, I don't know, where do I go next? Like, right? It's that moment. But it's the ones that have like prepared even while they were learning or whatever, and they saw and they prepared and they saw and they just were like, that's what it is, and I don't care. That's the choice. That's the choice. I'm sticking with it, and I'm taking action that way. And even if they're baby steps, I'm gonna make it there. And it's like this is that point in all those choices in all spectrums of our consciousness of in our reality, from yourself to your emotional self to your health to your relationships to your needs to your diet to your every aspect of your self-worth. It's all converging into, sure, we're always in school, I feel, as a soul in this reality, but this is no longer the school within the school. This is you showing the great masters and teachers of spirit what you have to show.
We're specializing.
Yeah. So, anybody have a last word, or did we rock the boat?
I know we had so many last words. But my last word is
650 people in here.
Oh, that's what I was going to say was my last words are to the audience that's here now too, because just like we saw that day when we had the event, there were so many of you that got to participate in the event. And by just being in the room, I know I feel connected to so many people that are in there, even though we've never met in physical. Just the fact that we're energetically connected is beautiful connection. It truly is. And I'm just really, really grateful to have all of you guys in my life, because it does feel like home. It does feel like family.
Yeah, I
can make me cry.
Oh. Well, I want to say the same thing to the audience, but I want to actually say something more personally to all three of you and everybody that's part of High Vibe, because there's people here that aren't there, but so it's the audience too. And when I read the comments and when I see the support, it's so beautiful. But I want to tell the audience that it's important in your personal life too, not just through people on High Vibe or whatever, but in your own life to find those tribe. Because like during this portal, I hit up Abby. We don't have to go into this. She knows all the stories in like life. Dylan and I had deep talks, and Jackson and I had deep talks. So, you know, it's like Craig and I. Well, Craig and I always have deep talks. But then him and I have crazy talks too. But then I have crazy talks with all three, all of you are. But it's like, I feel so blessed on both sides of this aisle. Like, I'm like, gosh, I have such a deep connection with everybody and in the audience. It's just a very, blessed. It's a blessing. But it's like, there's those people out there. And that's why we're doing the event on New Year's Eve. And in studio again, but like tribe. And I think that's what's, and you know, we just put up this picture just to like kind of get it out there, because tomorrow we're putting the ticket sales and we're putting all that up and finalizing it. But there's this beautiful moment for people to realize that the future of 2020 is about getting off the phone so much and getting back into with people. It is going to be what that decade's about. And I think that a lot of the stuff going on, I think Jim Carrey just came out recently and said that the reason why people are having so much mental health and anxiety and stuff is because they live in a system right now that is not meant for the human soul.
Oh, yeah.
And so
It's on
when
purpose.
we're all here and we're having a fun time and we're all talking or dancing or whatever, I don't see any of us just sitting on our phones like all night or whatever. Like we're just talking and being together. And I think that the new paradigm is this being able to go and discuss things way off the normalities of, well, what did you see on TV? Did you watch that show last night? Like it just reminds me of how the 20th century was. It was very, especially the like last 30 years, the 70s, 80s, 90s, it was kind of just like pretty bait. Like, what did you make for dinner last night? Oh, have you tried that restaurant yet? Oh yeah. You know what I mean? Like it was just what was around the environment you were in. And now we're like all talking about what's way outside the environment, the stuff that we see in our dreams, in our souls, in our imaginations. It's a much different place to be. Way more fun.
Yeah.
Because I was getting kind of tired of hearing my buddies when I was smoking weed back in the 2000s, even the night, and they, oh yeah, you get that place, it's dank, right? Like, it's like, heard that one.
I still use that word.
Ate that one. I'm not saying I don't use it still, but I'm just saying like that when that's the center of the conversation through the whole night of hanging out was when I knew myself that I had to move on in my life. And maybe a lot of people might need to hear that message right now. Like, if you're like, oh my gosh, I do not feel like I belong here at all. Like, this is the same robotic message and I'm not expanding. That's a sign. Because I don't think any of us would be on this stage if we didn't have that moment in our lives.
Yeah. It's a very literal thing. That's why, I strongly suggest to anyone that can make it out here for New Year's Eve, it's going to be so much more than just, meeting some cool people and having a party. It's going to be an evolutionary experience. It's going to be something else.
Yes. I feel like this New Year's Eve, I really see the collective body of this community really coming together with their best colors, with their most shine, showing up as the divine human beings that we all are, together in one place to anchor that frequency together going into this new decade. And I feel like it's going to be something we look back on for decades. That was the night that it all started. That was the night that I looked out into that room and I saw the people that would become, the family and the luminaries and the beings that we look to in that support system that keep us in our highest vibration, that keep us manifesting our greatest work through some of the greatest change that we'll ever experience or anyone ever has experienced. So, be there, be square.
Boom. Well, thank you all tonight, and thanks everybody out there in the audience. Unless anybody's left anything to say, or
Thank you.
We love
check
you.
out tomorrow night. We'll have on highvibe.tv an actual link for the event, and then of course check all the socials on High Vibe TV on Instagram, and we have a Facebook as well. And then you can follow any of us on all of our socials. We'll be posting stuff about it, and then of course check out highvibe.tv. I know everybody in the chat's like, "Where's Deep Astrology?" Well, it's on High Vibe. Of course, it's coming out to YouTube when I get to it to put it out to you all, but that's the beauty about being on High Vibe. So a lot of people already know, and it was pretty intense. So, but it was really good, positive. But I went and I gave a lot of secrets that really blew my mind about some stuff and the Helios stuff going on. So check us out. We're always here, highvibe.tv. Make sure that you go to the website. You can become a member even without subscribing and get the app and stuff, and don't miss out on the notifications, and definitely don't miss out on all the cool stuff that we got going on here every day, every week, and even with event-wise. Thanks so much for all your support. Thank you, everybody, for being here on the panel.
Thank you.
And we'll see you on the next After Dark.